And we now have Graham Dray's second segment on the State Sector Decarbonisation Fund. Where the money is going to come from.
Where the money is going to come from, right. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the State Sector Decarbonisation Fund in the first presentation. And this one's just to give a little bit more depth into that about how that actually works. So as Mike covered off very nicely for me, thank you Mike, the Carbon Neutral Government Programme. So as you can see there, it seeks to accelerate the emissions reductions within the public sector, and what this government's been all about is showing leadership to go, we must be first before others, so we can show the way. And as Mike explained also, there's a carbon neutrality goal by 2025. It was launched in 2020, I think it was January of 2020, and EECA is working alongside MFE and MB to support the programme. This is a rough breakdown of what the current state sector emissions are. So as you can see there, it's broken down: schools, tertiary, DHBs, defence, etc. Approximately 490 kilotons of energy emissions, of which 434 are stationary. So a lot of, certainly EECA's focus over the years has been around stationary energy in buildings, etc., to actually reduce those emissions. You can see there that whilst there's a lot of talk about vehicle emissions and certainly what a good thing it would be to reduce those emissions, absolutely, not disagreeing with that. When you look at the ratio between stationary energy and vehicle emissions, and there's, you can dive into both of those separate topics, but obviously 56 then against 434. So it is important, all the buildings that we're in, houses, etc., try and reduce that by whatever means we can. Okay, State Sector Decarbonisation Fund, or you may have heard the Green Clean Energy, as I think Mr Shaw likes to refer to it. That's fine. So the State Sector Decarbonisation Fund supports the state sector agencies to accelerate decarbonisation. As I talked about earlier, it's those projects out there that we want to bring to the current time to actually decarbonise as quickly as possible. Helps that by funding the decarbonisation plans and projects that accelerate investments to reduce emissions. So it's all about the now. I refer to the State Sector Fund as the fund that is basically, it's here now and may not be here in the future. So there's 219.5 million. Once that goes and money's been allocated to projects, that's it. So if you slow out the race traps and you go, I'll look at that in a couple of years, that money might not be there. So it's essential that if you want to take advantage of the state sector funding, you start looking at it now, because by the time you do get to it, it may not be there, as I say. So who's it pitched for? So the funding is open to state sector organisations to part fund, and that's the key thing there, the capital cost of installing energy efficient and or renewable energy technologies. I talked about in the Crown loans earlier about that was EECA's only capital replacement fund, and it is. This is an extra piece that EECA's administering, and so this is an ideal way to look at those capital costs for you. So what does it cover? Heating and cooling upgrades or replacements, e.g. switching fuel, fossil fuel boilers, coal and gas to wood energy, electricity and other renewable options. So it's about your chillers sitting on the roof of your building, sitting there with R22 refrigerant, does the new refrigerant R134A, whatever the case may be, bringing that up to the modern day standard. Installation of building management systems, and also fleet optimisation assessments and low emission vehicles. It's about moving it out of your ICE vehicle, your combustion vehicle, your petrol, your diesel, to electric vehicles. This is not about the transition from your ICE vehicle to your hybrid to your electric vehicle. You know, the whole idea of the State Sector Decarbonisation Fund is to do it as quickly as possible. If you add another step, whilst you can argue that might be right for the organisation for various reasons, the idea of the fund is to bring that step out of the equation and go straight to electric. All right. So when you look at the, I don't know, the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, that's not the one. You're looking at the pure electric. It also covers the cost associated with charging infrastructure. So there's two components to this. One's the vehicle, one's your charging infrastructure. The biggest component of those two are the vehicles. You know, typically you're talking, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for electric vehicle. If you're looking at, say, a typical organisation with a number of vehicles, you might have your typical Toyota Corolla. Let's say it's $20,000 for argument's sake. You're looking at an electric vehicle, $50,000. And so the fund will take into consideration the cost of that and fund part of that differential between your ICE vehicle and your electric vehicle. We'll also part fund the cost of the infrastructure, that is your charger, and digging up the area that you need to install the charger or chargers. So typically if you've got an outside area where you're keeping your vehicles, you might want to do 6 charger replacements. The idea is that the most expensive part of that is actually digging up the concrete and laying the infrastructure. So it will cover the cost of that infrastructure up to $5,000. So your charger and the infrastructure up to $5,000. Okay. If you're putting it on the bottom of a building, basement of the building, then $3,500, $4,000 might be enough to cover the cost of your charger and your installation. As I say, if you've got a big area outside, then the cost will be different. So it's not there to fund everything. It's meant to take away the pain of moving to electric vehicles, but the big cost and funding is there for the electric vehicles. The 219 million is not just there and everybody throws everything into the bucket. So there is what we call a notional allocation there, and you can see that in the dark blue lines there. So it is split up into health, primary, secondary education, tertiary education, fleet electrification, defence corrections and others. So it's not a big pot for everybody and everything. It is segmented into those areas. And what you can see on the green column there is what we've approved to date. So you can see there that the primary secondary education has reached the maximum there. But also there's some way to go, certainly on health and defence and corrections. The beige colour one is there what we've actually delivered to date. So you can see that is relatively small. And the reason for that, if you're looking at things like coal boiler replacements, these things take a lot of time to actually go from start to finish. So you may be looking at a 3-year period. So if you look at 2020 and you decided that yes, you was going to replace a coal boiler, put the application in mid-2020, then you've got to actually do the work to actually replace that boiler. And in a lot of cases, it's a long process. With the State Sector Fund, the idea is that the projects will be installed, finished and reported by December 2023. There's no point in us saying, yes, you can have the funding, but take till 2028 to actually finish the project. It's not the idea of the fund. The idea, as I said before, bring all those projects from there, bring it here, install it, finish it, complete it, report on it. That gives the government a good idea about where the next phase is going to be and how they do things. Just a quick word on what else we do within EECA apart from the State Sector Fund, but also that can help you look at your assets and what help we can give you along the way. So these are EECA support programs which generally we give sort of 40% funding towards the cost of those projects. So if you're looking at an energy management plan and policies, if you get an external supplier, contractor, such as Mike's CEP members, to actually write that for you, then there'll be 40% funding. You may go, I can do that myself, and you may be quite right, you can do that yourself, and you've got people within the organisation that could do that as well. Sometimes it's a good idea to have an external pair of eyes look at your organisation, because sometimes, you know, we're all a little bit blinkered in some cases. There's a lot going on. You might miss things, and someone coming in externally to look at your organisation might be a benefit. That's for you to decide. But certainly taking advantage of Mike's members who have done a number of these for certainly my set of customers, and they've done a very, very good job as well. Energy audits and systems optimisation. Again, going through this list goes back to CEP. Mike's members, CEP members can do a lot of this. And so I won't mention that again, but just to say that energy audits, systems optimisation, usually when you're starting off and you go, we need to do some energy efficiency, what's the first thing you do? Could be an energy audit, or it could just be simply, let's optimise what we've got, and that can range from anything from 15% to 30% saving, depending on, you know, your assets that you have, what you've done before, etc. Monitoring, targeting, I won't go through all of these. Feasibility studies, business cases, again, these are all things which, if you haven't looked at any of these, certainly be a good time. And if you haven't done any energy efficiency, it would certainly be a good time to get EECA in to talk to you about what you can do, how you can do it, what's out there in terms of support for you. Crown loans we covered earlier, so I won't go into that. Neighbours ratings, obviously. Technology innovation is an area where we look at what else is out there in the big world. You know, if you wanted to replace X, how are you going to do it? It might be there's new technology out there. It might be that actually, you know, it's not been put into New Zealand, it's not been used, but it might be used in Germany or Sweden. So with that Technology Innovation Fund, there's a little bit extra funding on that as opposed to the normal EECA support programs. But basically, it's about portraying that new technology out there, making it work within the organisation and the environment they want to put that into, but also then showcasing that out to New Zealand to go, have you seen this? This is working for organisation X. This is how they did it. So we might write a case study on it, but actually bringing that innovation into New Zealand. The last one there is energy graduates, and it's probably worth just spending a couple of extra minutes on this one. So EECA co-funds what we call energy graduates. So this is all about putting an extra member of staff into your organisation who is a recent graduate. And I say recent, so it might be someone who's fresh out of university, might be someone who maybe has done a couple of different roles for about 6 months, not quite sure what they want to do, then decided, yep, this is what I want to do. And so I guess the criteria is a little bit flexible, but we talk recent graduates. So these are graduates. It could be a chemical engineer, it could be a mechanical engineer, it could be, you know, various courses that they've done at university. That's going to help you as an organisation in your journey for energy efficiency. All right. So we've got 2 graduates in the room today, and those organisations just a handful of organisations that have actually got graduates in today. EECA has two sides, a public sector and an industrial. So we've got account managers on industrial and we've got account managers on the public sector. So we've got graduates that have gone right through the country, industrial sites, and I think probably up to maybe 30, could be more, that we've done over a period of 2 years and more. We co-fund for a period of 2 years, all right? Every dollar that we give out to organisations, there's an expectancy that we receive something back, and that's usually, on these support programs, kilowatt hours. All right, so if you do some monitoring and targeting, there'll be an expectation from EECA that there will be some kilowatt hours return for the money that we give you. They're not huge, lofty goals. They are quite, I won't say low, that's the wrong word to use, but they are of a fashion that, yes, you will be able to achieve it. So the process that we go through will highlight what we expect from that piece of work, gets agreed from the customer, and away you go and do the piece of work. The graduates are there for looking at your organisation, I guess, holistically. Their main role is to save energy, and typically that energy is around 2 gigs for 2 years. All right? So where people go, I don't have time, I've got other things to do, I've got to put the Band-Aid on, I've got to keep things going, I don't have time to look out there to see what I can save as far as energy efficiency is concerned. This is where your energy graduate comes into play. The main area that we're interested in, apart from energy efficiency, is the whole learning for a graduate. Graduates come out of university, they've got some theory, they've got some practical. Now we want to put the practical part and the theory into practice. All right? So it's not just using a graduate as an extra pair of hands, doesn't work. But what it does do, it focuses, I guess, your organisation on actually achieving the things that you can't do right now because you don't have the time and the manpower to do it. All right? I think that's about it. I will ask if there's any questions, because I think probably a couple of minutes. Yep. Is there any questions on that? And again, likewise, see me afterwards in the break. Any questions that you want to throw now? All right. Essentially, look, if you need help, just email, phone call, whatever the preferred contact is. We're always here. As I said before, we don't charge for our services. It's completely free. We just want to help you as an organisation, and there's many areas there that we can help you with. It's just often getting started. So just please sing out, and here to help. Okay.